Welcome to Untamed Blossoms, the podcast where we celebrate the untamed journey of womanhood. Here, we tell the stories of incredible women who have embraced their authenticity, inspiring others to do the same.
From entrepreneurs to artists, activists to adventurers, we share triumphs, challenges, and the beauty of self-discovery. These are the stories of women blazing their own trails, breaking free, and blooming unapologetically.
Join us to connect, be inspired, and celebrate the power of women's stories. Together, let's rewrite the rules and embrace our wildness.
Welcome to Untamed Blossoms. I'm your host, Amanda Riley.
And I'm Christy Riley. Welcome to the show, everybody.
Welcome back from Mexico.
Thank you. Oh my God, we love it there so much.
I'm sorry it wasn't as warm as you had hoped.
I'm in my Snuggie today because it's
snowy
here.
We literally have a weather alert because of how cold it's going to be this week.
Minus temperature.
Schools might not be opening this week because it's so cold.
Right. So that was quite the start. Even though when you go to a beach vacation, you hope to lay on the beach in a bathing suit and be warm. We laid on a bathing suit, but it was not warm. But we did get some sun. I always baptize myself in the ocean because you gotta every day, underwater, all the things. So we love it there. Shout out to Puerto Morales is where we go. And it's a great little town that has great restaurants and lots of places, cool places to stay, Airbnbs. There's a couple hotels there. Not very many. It's really very small, but it's starting to, become more popular. But we love it.
Between you and then my other sister-in-law, Kate, going to literally the island of women as it translates and
it's
taking
incredible.
Beautiful flowy gown photography while there. Did you see it?
I saw that pop up and then I went back to look at it and I couldn't find it anywhere.
Oh, don't worry. She sent me pictures.
Good,
I'll show you.
Good. I was like, photo shoot? This is so exciting.
I was like, why has everyone left me here? And they're all in Mexico on beaches.
And I'm here.
And I'm freezing. I can't feel my hands. Speaking of my hands, I'm going to tell you a little story about shredded cheese.
Oh, no.
There is a massive listeria outbreak right now with shredded cheese.
There is.
Like a ton of different brands are impacted. If you go to Aldi, for example, like half their shredded cheese is gone.
Really? I did not know this. Okay, I've been on a beach in Mexico.
That's fine.
Anyway.
I haven't really been buying shredded cheese often except for to make sourdough.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to make a focaccia.
Right.
Red peppers and Parmesan. Something Jim, our red friend, told us he did. So I was like, I'm going to make that. So I buy a block of cheese. I make the focaccia 10 out of 10. Right. One of my most flavorful, best ones I've ever made. So good. I put the cheese grater, which I didn't even know I had, by the way, because I've never grated cheese before. But I knew I had some tools that I've never touched, and that was one of them. So I was like, hell yeah. I got a cheese shutter, cheese grater. And so I used it and I put it in the sink. And then last night I was like, I'm going to make a salad because I made a salad with the veggies that you had given me before you left on your trip. And I'm like, I have a block of cheese in there still. This is going to be so good. My grater's dirty, but I have a zester.
Right.
Same thing, right?
Same.
Just whatever. I assume it's sharper too because of the fruit citrus, if you will. Right. So I take that sucker out. I'm holding the cheese like this. If you're watching on YouTube, holding it with my fist. Have this in this hand.
Zester in the right
hand. I'm going.
Yeah.
Slid off. Zested my goddamn skin off my pinky. So I'm in shock because there's a massive divot of skin just gone.
Right.
Just got zested out. Zested right off this body.
Then your mind spirals into the listeria that now you've got a skin opening.
Because it was only in shredded cheese. Okay, you know what I mean? So I was like, not that, but oh my God, I'm missing a huge chunk of skin. Anyway, it is probably the most painful thing that I've ever endured. And this sounds stupid. Like it's just like
paper cut on steroids.
But it's like it's just like a huge layer I zested off my body.
Yeah. Yeah. It's terrible. You don't ever want to do that. Yeah.
Thank God it's on my left hand and on my pinky because I can still lift without having to use it. I'm like this morning, kettlebells, doing one of these. This is all I got. So anyway, speaking
of this out, those little tiny cuts in the most inopportune places are the most painful pain in the asses.
Yeah. It's like it will never, it's like it keeps bleeding because it's just like a gaping, not wound in terms of like how deep it is, but just like it's a large layer of skin missing.
Right.
So,
Also, on a side note, don't ever buy shredded cheese. It is so bad for you.
I understand that, but here's the thing: convenience wise,
shred it.
I do it sometimes.
Well, you do. Everybody does for convenience. Me too. But for those of you who don't know, look it up. It's the stuff they keep it from sticking to each other. If you shred your own cheese, it sticks to each other. So they have to coat it in something to keep it. That coating is not great.
Well,
so shred your own cheese. It's better for you. Except I have an attachment on my KitchenAid. This just shows me that I need to get you a KitchenAid staff. I have an attachment on my KitchenAid that you just put the blocks in and close it, and it perfectly shreds cheese. And it takes about 2 seconds, and it's lovely.
That would have been helpful prior to my massive energy.
Also,
but I'm glad you're
don't use a zester to shred cheese.
Yeah. So I guess the whole reason you want one of those big ass round shredders is because it doesn't have as much injury potential. I don't know. Speaking of the gym, though, and my injury, I had a great workout this morning with our friend Carrie.
Yeah.
And today's guest is actually a referral from Carrie.
Awesome.
And Enshané is her name, and she lives in Seattle.
Yes.
But Carrie grew up with her, knew her. They're still besties, talk all the time. And she's had such an interesting life from living in Japan, raising her children there, coming back here, working for the government, doing spiritual work, energetic work. She just is wildly fascinating.
I can't wait to talk to her. Our friend Carrie she's got a very dry sense of humor. And I love that about her. You would have never guessed that her bestie was like a spiritual / energy healer.
Yeah.
And she just nonchalantly mentions that.
Yeah. She's like, she used to live in Japan. And also she does spiritual work. I'm like,
and it was,
what?
And that's how she delivers most things. She just is like, yeah, and that's how it is. Yeah.
I was like, well, I'll be damned. I'm going to have her on the spot.
And we're like, what?
Yeah. We just talked to each other for 4 hours on the phone at a time. And she's great. I'm like,
we need to have her on the show. And she's like, yeah, we can do that. Great. Exactly.
So I know when we were scheduling with her, she had just been on a trip to Japan. I believe she's back from that. And then she's going on another trip here coming soon. So excited to talk to her today and hear about her life story.
Can't wait to hear.
Well, hello. Welcome to the pod. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Enshané, we can't wait to talk to you. As a matter of fact, already you and Carrie have so many mannerisms that are the same. Similar haircuts, you wear glasses, but even some of the mannerisms that you guys have, you can tell that you grew up together, which is fantastic. You remind me a lot of her just speaking to you already.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yes, we did let the listeners know in the intro that you two are besties, and she'll always come in and say, yeah, talked to her on the phone last night for 3 hours. So I'm like, what?
My husband is just like, have you talked to Carrie today? I'm like, oh, no, actually I haven't. But do you want to see me for the next 3 hours or not? I think that's when he wants me to go away.
I think you need to call Carrie.
Yeah, it's time for you to go.
So you grew up here with her then in Ohio, is that right?
That's correct. Our dads worked together at the Ohio State University. Yeah. And really interesting story behind that, because we're talking about the early 70s where, Black coaches, Black staff, athletic staff, that was just kind of coming to the forefront. And if it weren't for the direction and the leadership of Woody Hayes, that man is amazing. We wouldn't have the program. I wouldn't literally be here. I wouldn't have grown up in Columbus, Ohio. My dad was drafted in the Vietnam War. Oh. And he was there when Woody, who was he was pro-Vietnam. He was a man of his times. Yeah. He was doing a tour, a USO tour in Vietnam, and ran into my dad, who was a medic. And he was so impressed that he said, hey, when you get out of here, and you're going to get out of here, he said, I want you to come work for me at Ohio State. Wow. And the rest is history. He was, just a guy from Memphis, Tennessee. His family was in Memphis, Tennessee. He wasn't sure if he was going to make it home. And he did. And he went back to Memphis and told his wife, my mother, she pulled out the paper and the pen, because back then there were no computers, and she said, "Hello, Mr. Hayes. Do you recall the conversation you had?" So she followed up, and he stayed true to his promise. So
wow,
that's incredible.
That's how they ended up in Ohio. And he actually gave me my name.
Oh, really?
He sure did. My mom was like a Francophile and really was into France and wanted a Frenchy sounding name. And supposedly they came up with 2 names, and I never found out what the other name was. But he came up with Enshané. I guess he got it from enchanté, which is French for, I guess, nice to meet you. And I don't speak French, unfortunately. And he took out the T, put in the N, and the rest is history.
Wow. So how long were they here before you came along?
They were here, let's see, I think they got here around, he became the athletic trainer, like an assistant trainer, and he was I think he was a graduate assistant, because they plucked him out. He was in Vietnam, and why he wasn't in school, then that's a whole other story. But he ended up being an athletic assistant at Ohio State, and I think that was around maybe 72. So I was born in 74, so it had to be at least 2 years. My brother had already been born. He was born in 69. And so in Memphis. So I all I know is by 72 they were in Columbus.
Oh wow.
What a cool story just there.
Right.
If you say
nothing to anyone here.
They worked together at Ohio State. I would assume your dad was an athlete and somehow got into an athletic program somehow because he was a previous athlete, right? And instead you're like, nope, met in Vietnam.
Met in Vietnam. He was too little to play football. So in high school in Memphis, they made him the water boy. Oh, because he was about 5'7" and thin as a rail. Yeah. And then but he was a player and got himself into a little trouble. And back then if you made babies in college, they'd kick you out. Oh. And so he found himself out of school and drafted. And so that's how he ended up there. But it all worked out.
Yeah. And so you have a brother. Do you have any other siblings?
I do. I have 2 sisters. We did not grow up together. One grew up in Nashville, Tennessee. The other grew up in Memphis. And one of those sisters, I was like 11 years old. And by that time, my parents had been divorced. They had been dating since the age of 15. I think they were just over each other. So, I would go visit Dad, and he always had this picture of this girl on the wall, and she's like a cheerleader. Mind you, I'm 11 years old, so this girl's a little bit older than me. And I was just like, Dad, finally I asked, who is this girl? And he's like putting on his tie. He's like, that's your sister. Okay.
By the way.
You're like, oh.
Thanks.
Wow.
So yeah, interesting. But we're all, we get along great. And she now lives in Prescott, Arizona, doing awesome. My other sister is back down in Memphis with her mom, and my brother has a coffee farm in Kona, Hawaii. So
oh wow.
I know, right? I chose the wrong line of work. He retired a full bird colonel in the Air Force, and he actually he was the captain of his football team at the Air Force and played Ohio State at the Liberty Bowl. And if anyone who's a football buff remembers that game, and I think it was 1990, Air Force won that game. They beat Ohio State. Liberty. It wasn't our strongest year. And my dad handed my brother the MVP trophy. Aww. So that was cool.
So athletics and sports and that kind of thing has really been intertwined in your life.
Born and raised, football, bleed scarlet and gray. Doesn't matter where I've lived, where I've ended up. I have a lot to thank Ohio State for, and really grateful that I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I think it grounded me in a way that regardless of where I've lived and where I've traveled, there's something about just being from, the Midwest, Great Lakes region, it just, there's a vibe, and it's cool. It's just like chill. It really is. So I'm grateful for that.
Did you play sports?
I did. I played basketball. I went to Columbus School for Girls for most of my high school, and we were horrible. We were horrible. We got spanked everywhere we played.
PSG is not really known for their athletics.
No, they're not. No. I was a shoo-in for like starter, varsity basketball, varsity track. And I actually started at Northland High School. And that year, my freshman year, they were city champs. So I was coming from like the top of athletics to just like, do you know how to dribble? So it was, but obviously didn't go there for the sports, but I ended up getting a scholarship for basketball at another, school that really wasn't known for athletics, Mount Holyoke. And I said, I'm not, it's Ivy League level school, but I didn't want to go to another all girls school. Yeah. So I said, no, thanks. And I ended up going to American University. Now I tried to walk onto their team and they didn't want me. So I went strictly for academics.
So what did you major in?
My major was international service. They don't call it international studies because they want to put you in the mindset of serving, right? And I was really inspired to get into international studies and service in high school at CSG. I had a counselor there. God bless her. She just sat me down and said, what do you want to do? And in high school, I was like super into Spanish and I want to go to Spain and I want to study abroad. I actually had an opportunity to study abroad my junior year and I flaked out. I had an opportunity to go to Germany for a year and it scared the bejesus out of me. I was not ready to go. Hindsight, I see how I think my spirit knew that it wasn't time for me to leave my mother at the time. But then I was so scared to leave. I just was not ready. And so I stayed, I finished at CSG, but she said, if you want to travel and do things like that, how about diplomacy? And that, I think if I were at Northland, I'm not quite sure that would have been posed by the school counselor. Mind you, they probably had like 2,000 students that they had to deal with. But, the fact that she took the time to listen to my interests and my needs, she introduced schools that rated top, in the country for diplomacy in American University, George Washington University. She said, you can do this. You can do this. And so I did.
Wow. That's incredible.
I know, right?
Like what support? And I think when you think about the opportunities that some people have or don't have, it just takes one person, one trusted adult that believes in you to plant a seed that can change your whole life.
Absolutely. And it also just made me really aware of the difference in education, right? Private versus public. I didn't get nearly the amount of attention that I did when I went to CSG. Right. And it's unfortunate that we can't provide those opportunities to all kids, regardless of what kind of school they go to. Even the outcomes, like I can see the differences, even at this age, how my classmates fared in public school. And I came up through public school until my sophomore year in high school. And then the outcomes of my classmates from private school, those kids went to Harvard, Princeton, just anywhere you can imagine, just these top tier schools. And some of them are leaders today. I've seen some of them on CBS getting interviewed by 60 Minutes. Also, even just the mortality rate, it's different.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say half of my class, but a lot of my classmates are not with us from public school. And from private school, maybe one or two, and that's it. So it's just, it's too much of a contrast. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to go to CSG and to just be a girl and not have the distractions of guys that you have a crush on, because I realized that it did make a difference. It really planted and created the foundation of who I am. Sometimes we'd be in class, we'd be on our periods, and we're just like, can I lay on the ground and put my feet up on the chair? And she said, go right ahead, do it.
Yeah.
And everybody in the room understood why you're doing
exactly.
it. And you didn't have to feel embarrassed about it.
Do that in Northland, you know?
Yeah. My sister-in-law always
there's something
mentions
to that.
Yeah, my sister-in-law always mentioned, she's like, I think I would have been so much happier and would have had a very different path in life if I had the opportunity to go to an all-girls school. She's like, the distraction of boys being there was really, really hard for her. And she often talks about like what a gift that would have been to be able to have that experience. So
especially at that age.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That age was paramount to me becoming who I am. And I wanted to go. It wasn't like my mom, you know, her dad forced me into that school. I knew from middle school, I was like, I got to get out of here. This is bonkers.
Yeah.
People are crazy. I mean, and I went to some pretty diverse schools with all different socioeconomic, you know, backgrounds, which was a great experience as well. So I'm glad that I had that public school, just real, very real, you know, kids getting into the school, fights, teachers beating up the students. Like, I mean, there was some real stuff because they were threatened, you know. There was some real stuff that went down in public school. And this was before the whole, you know, screening school shootings and things like that. But it was rough. And, you know, being in that environment at CSG, it was just like, it was a complete opposite, but also as a female who was, you know, who was deep into puberty, the distractions were gone and the support was there.
And what a gift to be able to, and at that age, right? You're pushing away your parents. This is your first moment of independence, to be surrounded by all girls, to be able to spread your wings. And this is before social media. You know, I'm sure it might even be different for CSG girls now, because, you know, they can meet boys online, and, you know, there's a whole nother level to it now. But then that wasn't really a thing, you know, and so you really could blossom into yourself without the external pressures of, what do I look like today? Do I look cute for this boy? I feel the same way. Had I got to go through high school without worrying about boys, wow.
Yeah.
That would have been a whole different thing.
Yeah. Not to say that I didn't, you know, have my fair share of sneaking out of school and going across the street and checking out what was going on in St. Charles. You know, like we got it.
Yeah.
For those of you who are listening remotely, CSG does have there's an all boys school across the road that she's referring to. So here in Columbus, it's very well known.
Definitely knew where it was.
Yeah. No, not that there's no commingling.
A little too easy to get over there.
So you go off to college and you decide, okay, like what was the not domestic or foreign affairs, but
Right.
foreign servitude?
International service.
International service. Okay.
Right. The School of International Service at American University still ranked. I'm not sure if it's still ranked number 1, but it's a top school in the United States. Very diverse. Lots of diplomats' kids end up over there. I was staying in the dorm, and the whole top floor was for a Saudi Arabian princess.
Oh.
The whole top floor of the dorm. I mean, this is the level of just, yeah. But then you just had folks from different walks of life, including myself. I by no means, you know, I was raised by a pretty much single mother by the time I was, you know, 8 years old, I think was when my dad moved out. And even though I was close to my father, my mother was the one who raised us. You know, my dad had his football schedule, and if you can imagine just the amount of travel and things like that, he was just never home. And so she held it down, and to end up in this school, this very distinguished university, and then it just meeting all different people, all different kinds of folks from everywhere around the globe, it just, my head just exploded. It was amazing to be in Washington, D.C. in the 90s. And that was right after Bill Clinton had gotten elected. He actually came to the school and spoke. And that was, I mean, the Secret Service were in the trees, on the ceiling of the door. You know, I mean, just the exposure was so inspiring. And I remember when I was filling out my first kind of selection of classes the summer before I left, and my mom was in the hallway. I'm laying on my bed, like looking at them, like, wow, they got all these languages I can learn, Mom. What language do you think I should learn? And she said, she popped her head in the door. She said, learn Japanese. I was like, okay, well, they have Korean, they have Chinese. Then I'm like, I don't really want to learn Spanish again. I want to go like Eastern, you know, something different, something exotic. She said, learn Japanese. They're all rich. I was like, okay, Japanese rich.
Solid advice.
I mean, that was all she wrote. So, yeah.
So you learned Japanese, and then, so forgive me, I'm not super familiar with this area, but did you have to kind of pick a concentration of what you really wanted to focus on, or was it more just generalized?
Well, the first year is very generalized, but you learn at the School of International Service. And I was doing a work study, so I worked in the counseling office, which was another great advantage because my counselor was also my boss. And so just learning the ins and outs of how to schedule my classes, I ultimately decided to minor in Japanese. So by my junior year, I studied abroad in Japan at Ritsumeikan University in Kyoto. And when I got there, you know, freshman, sophomore year, our classes were like immersion, but half the time the teacher, like, we're just like, I don't know what she's saying. You know, my sophomore year, because I was a dedicated student, like I learned to a certain extent. And then when I got to Japan, I was staying in an international dorm in Kyoto with European students, Korean students, students from, I mean, they were just from everywhere, Canada. I realized how much those students focus more on reading and writing, and American students really focus on conversation. And so I could see where my weaknesses were. I was really in the reading and writing. But it gave me a really great advantage in my hearing and my pronunciation and my speaking. So I became a lot more fluent than most of my counterparts. I think I just have a good ear as well for languages. By the time I graduated from high school, I had taken the Spanish test. There's an all-state Spanish test, and I ranked second in the state in Spanish.
Wow.
But by the time I downloaded all the Japanese, Spanish just went out the window. It's gone. And it's still not back.
Yeah. You're like, what? No.
Yeah. I ended up speaking
probably
Japanese.
Come back online if you were immersed in Spanish speaking culture, you'd probably back up on it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that trip to Cancun, I thought so too, but it did not work out. I was like looking at I'm like, don't stop, you know, no.
Me amo es.
So Japan is like one of my top 2 places
that you want to go.
That I want to go.
Yeah.
Like I am obsessed. You need to give us a deep dive of your time there. What you loved. I know you went back eventually, so we can get there too. But
oh my gosh, I know. I'm like, so this is like Japan life part 1, and then there's like Japan life part 2, because part 1 was as an undergrad in Kyoto, just taking in this city, that was so different from anything I'd ever experienced in my life. You had buildings that were 1,000 years old, just standing next to buildings they just built like 3 years ago. And then the technology, it was like I time traveled 5 years ahead.
Suddenly you're in the Jetsons.
Yeah, it's just insane how much more advanced their technology was. But then there were certain aspects of Japan where it's just like, why are you still like, there was just stuff that they would do and you're just like, why are you still doing that? Like, we don't do that anymore. So it's just this crazy mix of old and new, and it's still that way. Some of their toilets are still like if you get a traditional Japanese style toilet, like it's in the ground, like you have to squat. It's called a squatter.
It's a hole.
And some houses still have that. But then you also have the Toto like space toilets with the
it does everything for you.
Yeah, that everybody wants.
Yeah.
And since I've lived in Japan, I can't go back. Like if there's no bidet, I'm not using it. I'm bougie like that. So it's just it was this eclectic and really amazing mix of Western and Eastern culture that opened my eyes to just the possibilities of life outside of the United States, and really kind of made me think about what my place in the world, not so much just my place in Columbus, Ohio, or in Washington, D.C. So I started to think that maybe I wanted to get into international law or take the foreign service exam. So in talking to my counterparts from Europe, and the European students were a lot older. They graduate from college at like 25. So imagine we're in this dorm. I was staying in the international dorm, and we had tons of parties. It was awesome. But there was one girl, she was from Germany, and we had kitchens that we had to share. And her name was Mylin. She was German, and she was the coolest freaking woman I've ever met. Like, she had a leather jacket, and she'd like sit in the kitchen, and she's like smoking a cigarette because it's the 90s. And she's like, yeah, so I guess I'm gonna have some jam and toast. Do you want me to make some for you? I'm like, yeah, Madeline, I will do whatever. I'm down with whatever
you're doing. I'm doing
jam and cheese in the morning, and sausage, whatever. Let's do it. But you just get exposed to these people and these lifestyles that you're like, you know what? This is cool. I think I want to do a little more overseas travel and live overseas. So eventually I came back after a year, and finished my senior year at American. I interned at the Japanese embassy, and it was the Information and Culture Center. So by the time I came back, I was super fluent in Japanese. I actually had a homestay family. I found a homestay family. God bless them, in Kyoto, and they were awesome. And my Japanese just through the roof. I came back, and my Japanese teacher was like, "Why are you here?" Like, you don't need any more classes. So I ended up taking an internship at the Japan Information Culture Center, which was connected to the Japanese embassy, and learned about a program called Japan Exchange Teaching, and shortened to JET program. And so that program just picks up college graduates, and they send them to Japan. You don't have to speak Japanese. They prefer that you not have any background in Japanese, because you go and you teach English at local public schools, and they want to get people who have minimal exposure to Japan, so that they have the true kind of interaction with these students. And in a sense, the kids are also in an English immersion class, because the teachers can't speak Japanese. Well, for me, I spoke Japanese. I understood to a good extent Japanese culture. They had the CIR position as well. It's called a Coordinator for International Relations. But I was too scared to do it. I didn't think I was good enough. And I chose instead to be a teacher. And everybody who was interviewing me, they all knew me. They're like, yeah, okay, whatever, go, you know. But they were like, why are you not signing up to be a CIR? And I said, I don't feel confident enough. And I kicked myself because when I got over there, and I think it's just something that we females do, we don't give ourselves the credit to say, you know what, I'm going to fake it till I make it, but I'm good enough. I can do it. And when I got there, I saw jokers, mostly men, who could barely speak a sentence, and their pronunciation was deplorable. CIR positions. And I just said, I could have done that. I could have done that.
We talk about this a ton with women on the show of just like imposter syndrome. And the reason why men are CEOs of company more often than not, why they are higher up, is not because they know more and can do more, but they believe they can, regardless of their skill set or their level of ability, and just go for it.
That's right.
We seek perfection before we leap ahead, you know? Like we have to be perfect at it before we think we can move ahead. And
exactly.
That's really not. And men are like,
I'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out. Yeah. I'll figure it out when I get there. And as I've gotten older, I've been less hard on myself. But I think for us, it just takes age and probably less estrogen. Where you just get to that point, you're like, I don't care.
I'm hoping that this lands on some younger ears, and maybe we just need to expose them to that they can, you know. More and
That's
more,
right.
and hopefully we reverse that to where we're helping the younger ones, and it's not so much of an issue that they really feel like they can without perfection.
Perfectionist syndrome.
Before they're older, yeah.
And I think a lot of times society makes us think we have to be perfect, right? We get questioned on a lot of things that men just don't get questioned on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's just no assumption a lot of times with what men can or can't do. They just assume that they can do it. And with women, it's more like, are you sure?
Yeah.
You think are you going to be okay? You know,
and just in general, the criticism, we had someone on the pod a while ago who supported in communications for the mayor of a town here called Gehenna. And she was just talking about how brutal it is for women politicians, just what people say and tear apart and pick apart. And it's like men usually do not have nearly as much criticism put on them, especially not on their appearances or anything. And it's just, it is magnified in that arena.
That's right.
I saw a video the other day that said, is like, it basically was saying, I think Dee Dee posted it on her story, and it just said, you know, women are criticized for being a stay-at-home mom, and then they're criticized for being a working mom, and then they're criticized if their house isn't in certain order, and they're criticized for, you know, and it went through a list of about every aspect of our lives that we're judged for one way or another. And basically she said, you're always being judged. It doesn't matter. Do what you want to do. You know, like let go of that judgment piece. Other people will always judge you. And it's very harsh for women versus men. Yeah. Exactly.
Absolutely. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Right. Whatever path you take, there's going to be somebody who has an opinion about it. And so you have to do what your heart really tells you is the right thing for you, and not give a shit basically about what other people say.
That's right. And yes, and glad we can let off F-bombs on this show because I cut like a sailor.
Okay.
Yes.
That's one thing. People are like, your vocabulary is limited. I'm like, you know, the most honest people are the ones who cuss.
Yeah, I agree.
The truest and purest and most beautiful people are the ones who can cuss like a sailor. And I come from a long line of women who had great vocabularies, but they also had a great list of. I think I saw my mom one time call a guy a slaggedy ass motherfucker, and I was like,
You're like,
I'm writing that down right now.
Like, I'm never going to forget that. I'm putting that in my back pocket. I think I was like 8 years old.
Wait to use this one day.
Slagging ass. It was
You're
like a white guy too. Like,
right. That's actually
he tried to roll up, but she was not having it. And luckily I was raised by a very, very, she was 5'1" and just a force to be reckoned with. And sued Columbus Public Schools, represented herself and won. So
Wow.
that's, I mean, my mother, and God bless her. I mean, if it wasn't for her, I don't think and I'm not nearly the force that she was. But thankfully I had a mother like that. So even in my own doubt and, you know, lack of wisdom, I had her as a sounding board. And even she was like, why are you just going to go be a teacher? You know, and I was like, no, I'm not, you know, so.
Yeah. Was she
but
sad
it is what
when
it
you went
is.
back to be a teacher? Was she sad? And yeah.
You know, so this is where it kind of gets really kind of sad because, and I'm glad you asked that question. My mother had always displayed just illness from when I was probably in middle school. There would be times where she would just kind of seize up and go numb on the right side of her body. We couldn't figure out. I'd call the ambulance, they'd come out, and she'd go blind on the right side of her body. So we're like, is it a stroke? And I mean, years of this, years of growing up with this. And so it was always kind of her silent struggle. She still went to work every day. She was a teacher at Columbus Public Schools. She was a cheerleading coach, very successful cheerleading coach. And she just kept it moving. But there was a point where she was teaching in the classroom, and she was a high school English teacher. And two boys started fighting. Back then, the policy, I don't know if it's the same now, but the policy was that teachers have to jump in and break the kids up. I think that's since changed, probably because of my mother's case. But she went in, all 5'1" of her, to break these 15-year-old kids up who were trying to kill each other in the classroom. She got flipped over a table. And from that point on, she just went downhill. Eventually, she went to Harvard Medical, our Harvard hospital or whatever, because she just couldn't find the answers locally. She went to Cleveland Clinic. They referred her to there because they said, we think you have MS. And so I went with her to Harvard and listened to, they said, you need to go see this foremost doctor on MS. He's the #1 in the country, because she didn't believe him. She was like, no, I don't think you're right. So I said, why don't you just go to Harvard and talk to that guy? So we did. I was a sophomore in college, and he sat her down. I'll never forget this. And he said, get your affairs in order. And I just looked at her, and she was always dressed to the nines, beautiful woman. And she just sat there and she said, I don't believe you.
Oh.
And he said, ma'am, you have probably one of the most aggressive forms of MS that I've ever come across. He said, you've got to get your affairs in order, because you're going to go downhill, and you're going to go downhill quickly. And she took it in. She said, okay, thank you. And we're leaving, and I'm like, Mom, what are you going to do? What does that mean? Get your affairs in order. What does that mean? And she said, don't worry about it. So by the time I graduated from college, several times between my sophomore year and graduation, I would get phone calls from neighbors who said, your mom was, on the ground in her house. We don't know how long she was there, but we called an ambulance. She's in a, rehabilitation center or something like that, and she's just going to be there. until we can figure out, I'm talking to your brother, I'm talking to your uncle, her brother, and we're figuring out what we're going to. I would get countless phone calls like that because she just really refused to acknowledge and accept that she couldn't live in that big house by herself. She couldn't function in a way that would allow her to run her own household. And with MS, you have these episodes that can completely paralyze you. And it also has an impact on your brain capacity. There are lesions in your brain. And so her executive function just slowly started to deteriorate. She was lucid, but just remembering things, and it just went downhill, and it went downhill pretty fast. So my concern was leaving the country, right? My mom was pretty much wheelchair bound, and she still refused to leave that house. It was a big house on the north side of Columbus, and she wouldn't leave. And I said, why don't you consider maybe even moving back to Memphis? Your mom is still there. You've got family there. People can look after you. But I think to her, going back to Memphis, Tennessee was a step backwards, right? I think by moving to Columbus and establishing herself and having the life that she had, she felt like she made it. And going back to Memphis, Tennessee, going back to where she grew up during Jim Crow, that was a step backwards for her. She refused to do it. But she also told me, she said, look, I'm going to work with your brother. I'm going to work with your uncle. We're going to come up with a plan. Do not stay here. Do not worry about me. I am okay. You go do your thing. Fly. So I did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. I can't imagine how hard it was for you, but then how proud she was of you to do that, to take that leap and just have faith that it was going to work out the way it needed to, but knowing that this was a calling, right? You said immediately you knew that this was something that you wanted to do. And wow, I just can't imagine that push and pull.
As a parent, I can't imagine making the same decision, but I totally understand. As her child, I wish I had the foresight to realize that really wasn't a good plan for her.
So were they not, did they not come in and help? No.
My brother was in the military. He was stationed at different places. There were just places that he could and couldn't be, and he couldn't come home all the time. But her brother really reassured both of us that he would definitely take care of her. He was a very successful in his younger years, he was very successful and lived out in LA. He was in finance, had been interviewed by Black Enterprise in the 80s. He was like the first CFO of some Fortune 500 company in New York City. Very smart, very successful man. Lived in LA. And he said, hey, I got this. By this time, he was retired. He was doing some other kind of stuff. I kind of felt like it was shady, but I didn't ask questions. I was 19, I was by the time I graduated, I was 20, 21. And he said, I got it. I got your mom. I had an inkling that the checks that she was getting from the city of Columbus, because she won her lawsuit, right? Because basically that fight exacerbated her symptoms. That injury exacerbated her symptoms.
Yeah.
And she won that lawsuit, and they had to pay her medical bills and everything else for the rest of her life.
Wow.
And thank God, she got that settlement, because she needed a lot of help. She needed 24-hour healthcare, home healthcare. She needed just everything you could possibly imagine. But I truly believe that her brother was stealing her checks.
Wow. That is horrible.
And nobody would believe me. But I just always thought that I'm a pretty good judge of character. And I think that comes just from the intuitive gift that down the road I realized I inherited from the female side of my family.
Yeah, I think this is a great place to wrap up part 1 of this 2-part series, and come back next week to hear the rest of Enshané's beautiful story.
I agree.
Saga continues.
To be continued. We'll
Part
see you
2.
all next week.
Part 2.
See you guys.